Hi friends, it's Michelle from Cozy Egg, and today is Thursday, November 30th, 2023. So it's the last day of November, and this is episode 135. So here we are again. It has been over a month since I sat in front of you, because obviously for Dark October I did just weekly vlogs, so you didn't really see me during the month of October, but here we are again. So not too much to report. Obviously October happened, November has now happened, Thanksgiving, etc. And just, working on, being present and being grateful for the people that I have in my life, and for all of you that continue to watch and comment and support me. I really appreciate it. So let's dig into it, shall we? I am going to show you what I have been working on since my last vlog that I did at the end of October. Well, I guess it was technically the beginning of November, the last time I recorded. So I'm going to start with a finish. And this is in one of my vintage owl lady bags. I think Emily Eclectic Possessions has the twin to this. So I believe that I showed this to you when it was in progress. And so this is the planchette that I designed for Dark October Seance. For the attendees this year, I designed two planchettes. One was a monochromatic and one that says Dark October Seance on it, and then the other one is not monochromatic. And I've only stitched the non-monochromatic one. So here it is, and this is called The Blood is the Life, and it is inspired by Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. And I've actually already seen a finish. Megan, Wide-Eyed Stitching Child, showed her finish of this on her last video, which was super fun to see. She actually finished it before I did, so love seeing that. But this is primarily DMC. I actually did the black in Gentle Arts Raven just because that's what I've used on the other two planchettes. But on the chart, I just showed it as 310. So I just did it all in DMC on the chart. And I realized after the fact that I did these candle flames in the wrong color. I had pulled two different colors, and this is not the color they are supposed to be. So they are supposed to be a little darker, a little more gold. So I will probably pull those out and fix them before I mount this on one of the planchette boards that Homestead Needleworks created for these. So, and I stitched this on 40 count. Picture this plus pewter. So, yep. So there you go. Designed and stitched that in, well, I designed it in October. I didn't stitch the whole thing in October. It bled into November, but we won't talk about that. So that was my one finish. I did have a new start at the beginning of November, and I started, let me take this out of the plastic. I had this on my immediate radar to stitch since it came out. And then I was talking to Amy Gable Stitcher about it, and she was like, oh, I'm gonna start it with some other people at a retreat in November, so wait until November. So I was like, great. So I think Memphis Sarah E is stitching this as well. And so this is Little Robin Designs, the Birdman Cometh. And it is just a fun, funky sampler with that electric bunny and the dog and the little house and the birds here, the pomegranate, the weird birdmen, etc. I just love it. It's so fun, bright and colorful, and it calls for 40 count weeks Aztec red and then overdyed threads. And that is what I am using to stitch this. Let me put that back in here. And here are the threads. There's something crazy happening here. Okay. Lots of weeks, and then a couple of Gentle Arts and a couple classic colorworks. But there are the threads. Really pretty. And here is my start. Let me just fold that up. So I worked on this probably about a week, and I got all of that sky done at the top, and then I've started down this border on the side, and I got one of the birdmen stitched as well as some border here. So not too shabby. It's fun, and I'm really, I enjoyed the stitching on it. I'm looking forward to getting back to it. So, and if you want to join in, please feel free. I think the hashtag that we're using is just like Birdman Sal, super simple. So feel free. Okay, so then that was my new start. And then I had a couple of whips that I have been working on. And one of them I worked on for Dark 13 stitching, and that is the Greenhouse of Oddies Sal. And this is where I'm at. So I'm continuing to work down in this dirt down here and get all of this done. So I think I have all of the dirt done on this side, and I'm working on completing the center portion. And you can see my little frog that I stitched last time I worked on it. but the frame is totally complete. The frame in the greenhouse is totally complete, except for, you know, where it's outside the scope of my Q-snap. But I will get to that when I work on that side or this side. And I'm stitching this on 40 count Boston by Seraphim Fabrics, which is a really interesting color. It's kind of gray, kind of blue, kind of green. It sort of depends on what light you have it in, and what is up against it. So when I ordered it, I was thinking it was going to be quite gray. And then when it arrived, I was like, ooh, this is a lot more blue than I expected. But then once I started stitching on it, it's really kind of a chameleon color. So I really love it. And I'm really glad that I chose it because I think it works well for this. And I have this in another vintage Owl Lady bag that glows in the dark. And it has crystals and moons on the top of it, which I just love, of course. And this will kind of give you an idea of, I think this is through like the 4th release. So obviously all of this gets filled in, but you can kind of see how things are shaping up there. So I'm just working on this dirt down here and the dirt over here and here. So, and then once I get done with the dirt, then I can do this first planting, which are the desert plants with that little owl. So looking forward to that. I love stitching on this piece. It is such a fun piece. And, you know, I was telling somebody I've never had so much fun stitching dirt, but there you go. And here are some of the threads. And I am using Anchor Black for the black. Someone recommended that I try Flosh, and as soon as I can get my hands on some black Flosh, I'm going to give that a try on my next piece and see what I think about the coverage of that, because I am still on the mission to find the perfect black thread coverage. So here are some more threads, and yeah, really enjoy this one. It's a lot of fun. So I worked on that the week of the 13th and got some more done on the dirt. And then the next thing that I picked up was, let me move my chart that I have sitting here. So the next thing that I picked up to work on was Hannah Tingi by the Scarlet House. That is this one. So I started this a couple years ago on Thanksgiving Day with Christy from Crosshatch Quilts and some other folks that started it at the same time. And I was really thrilled to finally get to stitch this. I've been wanting to stitch it. I've had it in my stash since it came out. And really was excited to get it started finally. And what I love about this piece is that it has kind of a fall vibe to it. You know, it's got these sort of autumnal colors in the strawberries on the sides. You know, in here it's got kind of the golds and the browns. But then it also has the reds and the greens. And so it's kind of in this big red brick house and the little trees. And so it's kind of the perfect autumn to Christmas kind of stitch. So I decided I wanted to get this out again, since it seems to be my like annual Thanksgiving Day stitch now, because here we are, you know, year 2 and still working on it. But here is where I'm at, and I haven't gotten a whole lot of progress, but you know, every little bit counts. So here's where I'm at. And I've basically been working on this deer. I did finish off some strawberries here in the border, but then I've basically been working on this deer. And when I started, I think he just had like his head and his antlers. And so I've gotten all of his body done. He has these cute little spots. I got 2 of his legs done last night, and then I just need to do his other 2 legs, and then he will be finished. And then I will probably pop back up and work on some of this over one verse a little bit and see if I can get a little further on it. I started this word, but I started it when I was on a Zoom with some friends, and I don't have really great light in here to stitch over one on 40 count. So I went back to the deer. So, but I really love this piece. I love this crazy moth. It's just beautiful. Really beautiful. So I will probably work on this a little bit more, see how far I can get on it. And I am stitching this on 40 count buttercream. I don't know if it's vintage or not. No clue. By Lakeside. I probably have it written down someplace. And then I'm using the called for NPIs, which I have in here. So really pretty. Like I said, all these golds, yellows, browns, makes it very autumnal. And even the red, you know, is kind of an autumnal red, but the red with the green definitely gives it that little bit of a Christmas vibe. So yeah, working on that. And I lost a few days because of a migraine and, you know, what have you. So, but, and then I kind of got waylaid by reading. But I'm continuing to work on that. And so then let's talk about plans. So for December, like I said, I'm going to probably work on Hannah Tingi a little bit more. And then I am planning on having a new start in December. And I don't know if I put my chart back in here. I think I just have my printout. You know. So I had scanned this and printed it out because I was making some modifications. So I'll just show this to you. So I'm going to start Janet Reed by Chessie and Me. And this is an older chart of hers that I just love. And so the reason that I am starting this in December is because my mother's birthday is in December, and I want to stitch this as her memorial sampler. And the reason for that is because my mom's name is very similar to Janet Reed. So I have made some modifications to it to put my mom's name on it and the year she was born. And so this, part of what attracted me attracted me to this sampler in the first place, other than the name, is that it calls for Gentle Arts Simply Wool threads. And so I love the idea. I've stitched with the wool threads, the Simply Wools before, love them. And I love the idea of stitching this sampler during December, during winter, with those wools. So here are the threads. It's got this beautiful bright red, lots of greens, some blues, this pink, this sort of chocolate brown, really pretty. So, and the fabric that I chose for it, I kind of went around and around and around on it, and I needed something that was dark enough because there are some very light colored threads in here. Like this pink is quite light, and then there's this shaker white that's in here as well, that I want to make sure that it shows up. So I decided to go with a new color. This is Cookie Dough by Needle Bling, and it's a little darker than it's showing up there, and it's a little, it has a little less of a gold tone to it than what I'm seeing on the camera, but it's really pretty. I went with 32 count. I've used 32 count with the wools before, so hopefully that will be just fine. But I think that this will be really pretty. And there's one thread here that is really close to the color of the fabric. So I did get so I don't know that that's really going to show up. So I did get, I added a couple other colors here because that's chamomile. I think I added chives, and I think I added dried thyme. And I figured I could kind of look at those and see if one of them would work in lieu of the chamomile, assuming that that does not show up on my fabric. But I'm going to give it a shot, see what happens. But I did pull a couple extra colors just in case. So these two greens. So my plan is to stitch this in December. It is not a huge sampler, but I'm not gonna put a whole lot of pressure on myself. So, but it just seemed fitting to start a sampler for her in December. So that's what I'm gonna do. And I got the cookie dough linen from Hollis Hands Create on Etsy. So Christine had that in stock in several different counts. So that is a new start that I'm planning. The other start that I am planning is some friends and I were talking about starting the Primitive Hair Rebecca Nurse. And so Rebecca Nurse was one of the victims of the Salem witch trials. This is her house. There is, it's actually a photograph here of the house itself. So we were talking about stitching this starting maybe in December. It calls for all DMC. It calls for vintage country mocha. So I'm going to see about pulling supplies for this, and this is another one that I've had on my radar to start for a while. And so when it was, when we talked about starting it in December, it just seemed kind of like the perfect thing. So I love the snowy ground and the trees. And I think it'll be a really beautiful piece. So that is my other planned start. And I haven't really thought ahead to 2024. In fact, I've been sort of, racking my brain, like if I want to have a New Year's start, and if I do, what do I want to start? And like, nothing's really calling to me. So, yeah. So I'm just going to kind of play it by ear and see what happens. I do have a couple of things that I need to work on. So we'll see if I can carve out some time to do that. But other than that, and in December, if I get a chance, I would like to work on one of my Christmas pieces. I'm kind of thinking my Christmas celebration sampler from Frosted Pumpkin, or I just got the Creepy Christmas Village by Lola Crow. That's like 6 ornaments, and I think the 4th one comes out tomorrow. So I might start that because it's ornaments and it's Christmas Village creepiness. So, but as far as January goes, as far as next year, I really don't have any plans, which is fine. It's totally fine. I'm just gonna kind of take it as it goes. So, I did have a couple things I wanted to share with you before I dig into what I've been reading. And one of them is, we had talked a while back about vlogs and about, looking for videos that are just, lovely and calming, cozy, just that sort of vibe. And I did want to share with you, this is not a video, but Dorine Frost, who is on Instagram, and I think her Instagram is like Dorine Frost VT, because she's in Vermont. Her Instagram is lovely. It is absolutely lovely. She does wool rugs, and she makes bears and all sorts of beautiful pieces that she makes. Just they're just some beautiful artwork. But she also has a Substack where she writes, which is kind of the Nouveau blog platform. And she writes almost every day. And it's just, you know, it's a lovely little glimpse into, you know, what's happening with the changing of the seasons and what's going on that she's working on, and, you know, what she's baking, and, you know, just, it's just lovely. And she also does a newsletter called the Little Brown House Gazette, and you can subscribe to it. It comes by mail, by snail mail. You can subscribe to it, or you can do individual, you can buy an individual issue. And so I decided to buy her October issue, mainly because in it she had a pattern for a wool rug that she had shown on Instagram, and that she sold the finished product on her website. But the only way to get the pattern was in her October issue of the Gazette. So I purchased that, and it came, and it's just, it's a lovely little newsletter. I mean, and it just, you know, I won't show you the whole thing, but it has little stories in it. It has, you know, recipes in it. And, you know, it's like getting a little newspaper, you know, from the local small town artisan. So it's just, I was thrilled when I got it, and I sort of saved it until I finished with something big that I had on my plate. And then this was my reward, was to sit down and just read it and savor it. So I wanted to share that with you. You know, if, like me, you are one of those people that is always looking for little bits of, you know, loveliness, coziness, seasonal, intentional living, I wanted to share that with you. So, okay. Let's talk about books. And of course, also, you know, I'm continuing to do my vlog clips, which I will probably put at the beginning of this video so that you can see those. And then we'll, of course, you've already seen them at this point, so you know where they are in the video. Yeah, but it's interesting, since I started doing those little vlog clips this year, just that act of doing that has made me so much more present and aware of the changing of the seasons. You know, I know I show that shot of, you know, out my back door of the trees in the park behind me a lot, because it just, I find it so interesting how they change throughout the year, and what they look like from season to season. So it's, you know, it's definitely made me a lot more aware of things. And I've been using my Merlin app to identify birds that we have. I started doing that in the spring, and so it's been a lot of fun to see, you know, how the birds change throughout the seasons. And yeah, so that's really, it's been good. It's been good for me. And I know several of you have mentioned that you really enjoy the clips, so I'm glad that you do. they make me really happy. So I'm glad that you enjoy them as well. All right, so I am going to talk about books. So if you're not interested in that, feel free to log off. But I'm going to talk about what I read in October, because I know I talked about some of the books in my vlogs, but I don't know that I talked about all of them, because it started to get a little dicey there at the end. But I thought I would just walk through these. So the first one that I read was Dowry of Blood, and this is by S.T. Gibson. And this is basically a take on Dracula's Brides, and it's so good. It's really good. It's interesting to me because the way that it's written like a diary. And the reason that is interesting to me is because Bram Stoker's Dracula, is written the story is told through letters and diary entries and newspaper clippings and that sort of thing. And so I thought this was interesting that it was done sort of in that same style. So I really enjoyed that one. Several people recommended it to me, and I'm glad that I got it and I saved it for October, for my dark October reads. So it was really good. And then the next thing that I read was Blood Orange. And this one was also recommended to me. This is another vampire story. This one is quite spicy. So just look into that before you read. This is by Karina Hale or Halley. And this is book 1 of 2, which I did not realize, or maybe I realized it and then just said, well, I'll just read the first one and see how it goes. But I'm definitely going to read the second one. I really enjoyed this too. This was really good. It's basically a witch that is a vampire hunter that is given this vampire as a target, and ends up falling in love with him, basically. So really good. Highly recommend. I think the second one is called like The Black Rose, maybe. The next book that I read, this was a book for the Sampler Guild of the Rockies book club. And when I read the description for it, they didn't have it at my library, and I tried to get those books at my library. They didn't have it, but when I read the description, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy it. So I bought it. This is called The Silk House by Katie Nunn. This was so good. It is very gothic, very, it's got a little dark academia vibe to it. And, all of the books that we've read so far for the book club have, something to do with needlework of some sort. And this one specifically has to do with weaving silk, like silk fabric, and the patterns in the fabric, embroidered, woven in the fabric. So I'm having a problem with words tonight, but this is really good. And it takes place in a couple different times. So, you've got things happening in 2 different timelines, but highly recommend, very good. The next book that I read, this was the end of my dark October reading. The next one I read was Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. This book is called the original vampire book. This was written prior to Bram Stoker's Dracula. And as you can see, it is not very long. It is very good. I really enjoyed this one as well. And I'm a little shocked at myself that it is taking me this long to read it. So, highly recommend this one as well. If you are a Dracula vampire kind of fan. I purchased one more book that I intended to read in October, and I didn't get to it because I ended up reading The Silk House instead. But I may save this one. But this is also by Karina Hale, called Hollow, and this is based on the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So I expect that it has some spice to it as well. So I picked this one up, and there is now the second book that is out called Legend, and I may just save this one for next October. But if this is, you know, anything like Blood Orange, I think I will enjoy it, but I just didn't get to it, so I'm gonna save it. And then I am in the process of reading, oh, before I get to that, so I read 2 other things. And I know that I've mentioned here before books that I have read that were originally Twilight fan fiction. Go ahead and judge me if you want to, but recently, in October, I saw a post on Instagram about a piece of art by Marcel Duchamp that is at the Philadelphia Art Museum. And it kind of tickled my brain. Like, I know that I have read something about this. And so I kind of had to, you know, sift through and finally figured out that I think that I had read it in a Twilight fan fiction story. So I went digging and found the story. And so it is a story that, you know, a lot of these started out as Twilight fan fiction, and then they were redone and published as, you know, whatever. The names were changed, etc. But this one has never been published, and it's a shame because it's good. But so I dug into because I was like, well, now I gotta read it because now my brain's moving. So it was a story called Art After 5, and it takes place in Philadelphia. And it was a very good story. The original story, Art After 5, was written from Bella's point of view. This is alternative universe, so it's just taking those characters and putting them in an entirely different story. But I read Art After 5, I just churned through it. And then the author had also written the same story, but from Edward's point of view. And so then I read that, which is called Counterpoint. So I read both of those, thoroughly enjoyed them, but it's funny how, you know, you get these little tickles of things and it's like, oh, I need to go, you know, figure that out. Where did I read that before? You know, at least I do. This is how I work. So anyway, I read those 2, thoroughly enjoyed them, and sadly, they have not been published. What are you gonna do? But then I have been working on my next book club book, and this is a book called The Seamstress of Sardinia by Bianca Pizzorno, and I'm about 2/3 of the way through it, and it's good. I'm enjoying it, but I did take a slight detour, and I started reading these Tessa Bailey books, and I had read something before by Tessa Bailey, which was not great, but this was a series. They're basically 3 kind of, romance, contemporary romance books. And the first one is called Fix Her Up. And then the second one, Love Her or Lose Her. And then the third one, Tools of Engagement. And I just blew through all 3 of these. So, and they were enjoyable. I am not typically a cute, kind of romance sort of person, but these were good. They were, they had romance, they had some spice to them. I enjoyed them thoroughly. I think I read all 3 of these. I guess I started the first one this past Saturday, and I finished up the third one yesterday. So I guess it took me 4 or 5 days to read the 3 of them. So very much enjoyed them. Tessa Bailey. I can't recommend any of her other books. 1, because the one that I read wasn't great, and 2, I haven't read any others. So I'm going to finish up my book club book now that I'm back where I'm supposed to be, doing that. And once I finish that, then I'm going to read my last book in the Fever series, which is Kingdom of Shadow and Light. So this is the last one in the series, the last one that I have to read. This is the only one, when I started my reread, this was the only one I had not read. And so I'm looking forward to finally reading the very last book in the series. So that is my plan. And then we'll see what else I stumble onto. So that is it for me. Like I said, who knows what the plans are for 2024. I will probably be back, before the end of the year. And like I said, I appreciate each and every one of you that watches, that subscribes and likes and comments, and those of you that just silently watch and keep coming back. So thank you so much for doing that. And I guess that's it. So we'll move right on into December. So thanks everyone. Happy stitching.